In the endless churn of daily news, some stories demand our attention, forcing us to question the power we grant those in uniform. The case of Ajit Kumar is not just another headline about a death in police custody. It's a chilling reminder of the fragility of rights when faced with unchecked authority. What began as a minor infraction spiraled into a national reckoning, exposing the cracks in our law enforcement and the cost of silence. Ajit Kumar's name, once unknown, now stands as a symbol of a system many fear, but few challenge. As we trace his journey from arrest to the aftermath, we confront the urgent need for accountability and the true meaning of justice. Ajit Kumar's ordeal began with what seemed like a routine police pickup. Little did he know, this ordinary encounter would spiral into an unimaginable tragedy, forever altering the course of his life and the lives of his loved ones. He was apprehended in connection with a chain-snatching case, a petty crime in the grand scheme of things, but one that set in motion a series of devastating events. This was a crime that, under normal circumstances, should have led to a court date, a trial, and a chance for justice to be served through due process, not a funeral. The stark contrast between the alleged offense and the ultimate outcome is a chilling testament to the failures that occurred. The police, wielding the authority and power granted to them by the state, took him in for questioning, initiating a process that would ultimately lead to his demise. From that moment, his fate was inextricably linked to the actions, decisions, and oversights of the state, a system designed to protect and serve, but one that tragically failed him. Legally and ethically, the police are responsible for the safety and well-being of anyone in their custody, a duty of care that extends to ensuring their physical and mental health. But Ajit's family's initial anxiety and concern soon morphed into a paralyzing dread as the hours ticked by with no word, no reassurance, and no explanation. The events that transpired in the hours following his arrest remain shrouded in mystery, a period marked by a disturbing lack of transparency and accountability. There are no clear answers, no verifiable accounts, and no independent witnesses to shed light on what exactly happened during his interrogation. He was denied access to legal counsel, and the details of his treatment while in custody remain vague and unsubstantiated. The official story, as presented in police reports and statements, described a standard inquiry, a routine procedure conducted within the bounds of the law. But the tragic outcome that followed irrevocably shattered that illusion, exposing a disturbing reality of potential negligence, abuse, or worse. The focus quickly shifted away from the initial allegation of theft, a relatively minor offense. The focus turned to the far graver and more pressing question: how did a man, alive and well when taken into state custody, end up dead under their watch? For Ajit, the police station, a symbol of law and order, became a place of no return, a point of no escape. The case, which began with a stolen chain, a material object of little consequence in the grand scheme of things, now centered on a stolen life, a loss that can never be recovered or replaced. The tragedy is demanding answers from a system now under intense scrutiny, a system that must be held accountable for its failures. Inside the imposing walls of the police station, a stark contrast of narratives began to emerge. The truth, it seemed, was shrouded in conflicting accounts and unanswered questions. The official account provided by the authorities and the deeply felt allegations voiced by Ajit's family split sharply, creating a chasm of distrust and suspicion. The family's desperate search for answers was met with resistance and conflicting information. Police claimed it was a routine questioning, a standard procedure conducted within the bounds of the law. They maintained that Ajit was treated fairly and with respect, but Ajit's family vehemently alleged brutal torture, a horrifying ordeal inflicted upon him during his time in custody. Their grief fueled a burning desire for justice and accountability. Beatings, they claimed, were a regular occurrence, and relentless abuse, all meant to force a confession from Ajit, regardless of its truthfulness or validity. The family believed that the police were determined to extract a confession at any cost. These claims, unfortunately, echo a long and troubling pattern in Indian policing, a history marred by allegations of misconduct and abuse of power, where third-degree methods, euphemisms for torture, are an open secret, a practice whispered about but rarely acknowledged officially. The family described visible injuries on Ajit's body and recounted how their pleas for help and medical attention were ignored, dismissed by the authorities. insisting that Ajit was in perfectly good health before his arrest. The police brushed aside their concerns, further fueling the family's anger and desperation. Legal safeguards, fundamental rights like access to a lawyer to provide counsel and independent medical checks to ensure well-being, were allegedly bypassed, deliberately circumvented to prevent scrutiny and maintain control over the situation. The police station, an institution meant to uphold the law and protect the innocent, allegedly became a place of lawlessness, a space where the very principles it was supposed to defend were violated. At the heart of this controversy lies a critical question. Was Ajit's death a tragic medical event, an unforeseen and unavoidable consequence of a pre-existing condition? Or was it the direct result of deliberate violence, a consequence of the alleged torture and abuse he suffered while in police custody? Only concrete evidence, his documented injuries, the official station records, meticulously kept or suspiciously altered, and the accounts of witnesses, both those willing to speak openly and those who remained silent out of fear, could ultimately reveal the truth behind Ajit's death and bring justice to his family. The allegations weren't just directed against individual officers, those directly involved in Ajit's arrest and detention, but against the state itself, the system that is supposed to ensure accountability and protect its citizens from abuse of power. Ajit's health collapsed while still in custody. The police claimed he suddenly felt unwell and rushed him to a hospital. But the timeline, how long he suffered, what care he received, remained suspiciously vague. His family, summoned in panic, arrived to find him fighting for his life, convinced his injuries were no accident. Despite doctors' efforts, Ajit died soon after admission. His death, though outside the lockup, was a clear custodial death. Legally, the state's responsibility doesn't end at the station door. A mandatory inquest and post-mortem followed, with Ajit's body now the silent witness to what happened behind closed doors. The autopsy would become the key to unlocking the truth. For his family, the tragedy was just beginning. For the authorities, a reckoning loomed. In the aftermath of Ajit's death, two starkly different narratives began to emerge, each vying for dominance in the public's perception. These conflicting accounts painted vastly different pictures of the events leading up to his demise and the subsequent actions of the authorities. On one side, the police presented a narrative that downplayed any potential wrongdoing, attributing Ajit's death to pre-existing health issues or, more disturbingly, suggesting suicide as a possible cause. They were insistent that they had followed protocol meticulously throughout their interactions with Ajit, implying that no misconduct had occurred and that their actions were entirely justified and within the bounds of the law. However, Ajit's family, completely devastated by their loss and fueled by their suspicions, vehemently rejected this official account, calling it a blatant cover-up designed to protect those responsible for his death. They pointed to the visible injuries on Ajit's body as undeniable proof of torture and mistreatment while in police custody, arguing that these injuries directly contradicted the police's claims of a natural death or suicide. Their grief, raw and palpable, quickly became a public spectacle, drawing attention to their accusations and amplifying their calls for justice. This outpouring of emotion ignited a wave of public outrage and suspicion, as many began to question the police's version of events and demand a thorough and impartial investigation. In this climate of distrust, the post-mortem report took on immense significance, becoming a pivotal piece of evidence in determining the truth behind Ajit's death. The report revealed the presence of multiple injuries on Ajit's body, injuries that could not be easily explained away by the police's initial claims. These findings directly contradicted the police's statements, casting serious doubt on their credibility and raising questions about their transparency. The autopsy results provided crucial support for the family's accusations of torture and foul play, bolstering their case and intensifying the pressure on the authorities to provide answers. In essence, the autopsy became the case's most powerful witness, offering an objective account of Ajit's physical condition and challenging the official narrative presented by the police. This evidence significantly shifted the burden of proof onto the police, forcing them to defend their actions and provide a more convincing explanation for Ajit's death. This clash between the official narrative and the family's accusations exposed a deep-seated mistrust between citizens and law enforcement, highlighting the fragile relationship between the police and the communities they serve. This mistrust was rooted in decades of alleged brutality, abuse of power, and a perceived lack of accountability within the police force, fueling a sense of injustice and resentment among the population. The police's subsequent attempts at damage control, aimed at mitigating the fallout from the autopsy report and regaining public trust, ultimately only deepened the existing suspicion, as their explanations were met with skepticism and further scrutiny from the media and the public alike. The family's unwavering pain and determination to seek justice transformed their personal tragedy into a powerful rallying cry for others who had suffered similar losses. Their fight became a symbol of the broader struggle for justice, not just for Ajit, but for all those who had allegedly been victims of police misconduct and abuse. It was a call for accountability and systemic change, aimed at preventing future instances of custodial violence and ensuring that those responsible were held accountable for their actions. The case was no longer a private matter confined to the family's grief. It had become a national issue, a public indictment of a broken system that had allegedly failed to protect its citizens and had allowed injustice to prevail. Ajit Kumar's death sparked national outrage, social media erupted, protests filled the streets, and his name became a symbol of resistance. Civil society and human rights groups condemned the incident, highlighting it as part of a larger pattern of police abuse. They provided legal aid and kept the spotlight on systemic reform, not just individual punishment. Political leaders, pressured by public anger, demanded independent investigations and swift action. Government officials promised accountability, while opposition parties seized the moment to demand reform. The media's relentless coverage ensured the case stayed in the public eye, exposing inconsistencies and amplifying the family's voice. The combined force of protest, activism, and journalism made silence impossible. The system, under pressure, was forced to act. Under intense scrutiny, the state suspended the officers involved and filed murder charges based on the post-mortem findings. An independent investigation was launched, with calls for oversight by agencies outside the local police. A parallel magisterial inquiry began, gathering testimony from witnesses, doctors, and police personnel. The process was slow but crucial, meant to ensure impartiality and restore public trust. Forensic evidence, station records, and witness statements were collected. The accused officers were arrested, signaling a rare willingness to hold police accountable. Yet, the family knew the legal battle was just beginning. The fight for justice had entered the courts, but the outcome was far from certain. As of July 2025, Ajit Kumar's case is in court, the trial just beginning. The charge sheet names several officers for murder and wrongful confinement. The accused, now out on bail, await trial, a process likely to drag on for years. Ajit's family, supported by activists, attends every hearing, determined to see justice done. The prosecution and defense prepare for a complex legal battle, with witness protection and evidence integrity as key concerns. The public and reform advocates watch closely, knowing the verdict will set a precedent. The family's perseverance keeps the case alive, but the road to justice is long and uncertain. The outcome will test the system's willingness to hold its own accountable. Ajit Kumar's story is a stark reminder of the dangers ordinary citizens face in the shadow of unchecked power. True justice isn't just about convicting individuals. It's about changing the system that allowed this to happen. Reforms are needed. CCTV in every station, strict legal safeguards, and training that rejects violence as a tool. Accountability must be swift and certain, not lost in endless bureaucracy. Ajit's family's courage is a call to action for all of us. Their fight is for a future where police custody means safety, not fear. As the trial unfolds, the nation waits. Will this be a turning point, or just another chapter in a long history of injustice? The quest for justice is a marathon, and it's one we must all run together.